Hi, hello, wherever you are in the world, and you're watching this little next bit of the Enactus World Cup. I'm Michael Hastings. I'm thrilled to be with you. It's always been great when we've been able to be together on the big stage and we've had the energy of all the noise and the flags and the drama of it all. But here we are on this exciting flat thing called Zoom, which we're hugely grateful, or Skype, or Teams, or wherever way you've joined. But welcome to a session on rethinking plastics. And I've got two remarkable guests with me. I've got Jennifer Parr, and I've got Ben Jordan, and it'll be obvious which one is Jennifer and which one is Ben. But if you're having problems figuring that out, then there's a counseling session immediately after this. We can give you some help. But our theme is rethinking plastic. Now, I'm going to ask both Jennifer and Ben a difficult question in a minute, but I'm just going to ask Jennifer something at the very beginning, which is Ben is from Coca-Cola, and we kind of know what Coca-Cola is because we see it everywhere, whether we want to or not. But we also, at the moment, see it in the background of his very, very clear non-marketing screen. So we're proud to see Coca-Cola there. And anybody who's got another drink, you can put it away. Coca-Cola is the one to have. But Jennifer, High Cone, I looked up High Cone, and I know that you're in the alternatives to plastic business. But just give us your own version of High Cone.
Sure. So Hycone is a leading supplier of ring carrier multi-pack systems. We supply for both the beer and the non-alcoholic ready-to-drink beverage markets. We supply this, provide sustainable packaging solution for the consumer packaged goods companies. So Coke is one of our customers throughout the world.
So you're the good guys who help, the others to be able to be much more positive about non-plastics effectively.
So today our solution is plastic. We're changing our portfolio to be over 50% recycled plastic. And in the future, we're looking for solutions by 2025. We've made the commitment to have 100% recyclable, biodegradable, or compostable solution for a multi-pack beverage packaging solution.
Great, thank you. Mm-hmm. So Ben, you are Dr. Ben Jordan. You're Senior Director of Environmental Policy, Global Policy and Sustainability at Coca-Cola. But here's a very, very personal question on plastics. Have you found it easy to get them out of your house?
So let me sort of back up, and talk a little bit about our approach at the Coca-Cola Company and talk about how I think about that.
How about you, Ben? I just wanted to ask you whether you've been able to get rid of plastics at home before we get on to the business.
So I would say, and I fundamentally believe, that all packaging, different types of packaging have a role in our lifestyle. And so, what we do within our home, I have two boys, a wife and two boys. We do use some plastic. We use some aluminum cans and other types of packaging. And we recycle that. We have a very great recycling program in our community where we're able to recycle that packaging and put it through the circular economy.
So in other words, what you're saying is it's tough. It is tough. Yeah.
Sure.
We've all got plastic everywhere, and it's kind of really difficult to figure out how we're get plastic in a way that we don't use it. We went through a very big campaign globally last year, 2019, before coronavirus came along, of aiming at no single-use plastics. And along comes coronavirus, and we have single-use plastics absolutely everywhere, all of a sudden, as though the campaign never happened.
Well, and I think the coronavirus pandemic has certainly put a light on, an even stronger light on plastic, both in terms of the benefits that plastic packaging create for all of us and the real need that we do have for it, right? But the problems that it can create if it's not recycled and it ends up in the environment. And so that's what we're trying to do through our Global World Without Waste program. That's our 2030 plan for how we deal with our packaging, not just plastics, but all of our packaging, looking at, okay, how do we drive a circular economy for our packaging? How do we keep our packaging out of the environment after consumers enjoy our product? We've got a set of goals around that, around the design of our packaging, where we're by 2025, in line with Ellen MacArthur Foundation's global commitment, we'll only be putting fully recyclable packaging into the marketplace. By 2030, each of our packages will have at least 50% recycled material in that package. We have goals around the collection and recycling of our package. So by 2030, for every package we put into the marketplace, we want to help bring one back for recycling and driving that circular economy. And then our third action pillar as part of our World Without Waste program is partnership, realizing that, we can have big, bold goals and try to take care of our packaging. But really, this is a broader systemic societal issue. We've got to work with other businesses, peers and competitors, community groups, nonprofit organizations, groups like Enactus and the students represented and engaged here to solve these issues.
When you say, talk us through the 50% of non-plastic material, just tell us and get as technical as you need to. What is it? What is the non-plastic bit?
Sure. So backing up. So if you think about our package portfolio today, so what are the different ways you might enjoy one of our products, right? It might be in a PET plastic bottle. It might be in a glass bottle. It might be in an aluminum can. It might be in a cup or a glass or a refillable bottle that you bring into a restaurant establishment, and fill it yourself, or use a reusable or refillable cup they have. For juice products and dairy products, we have things like juice pouches or beverage cartons as well, right? So we have a pretty diverse package portfolio really today. When we look to our goals, right, and what we're trying to do with our World Without Waste program, it really is stepping back and looking at, okay, if 2 billion times a day consumers are going to enjoy our products, and usually that's in a package, okay, how are we fundamentally pushing ourselves to think about how we're getting that product to them? Are there places, for example, where they can bring their own package, and should we be doing that when it makes sense, right? But for the packages that are used only one time, how do we make sure that they're recyclable? Now, we do have refillable packaging in many markets, and that's a critical part of our global strategy in many markets. So for PET plastic bottles and glass, those can be refillable, and we are using those in many markets. We actually have 25 markets in the world that half of their portfolio or more is refillable packaging. We have 25 markets, or another 25 markets at about 25%, of their portfolio. And so, really market by market, country by country around the world, we're building out that 10-year plan, that plan to 2030. So how do we realize these goals? When it comes to that 50% recycled material goal that you asked about, so for every package, whether it's a PET plastic bottle, an aluminum can, or a glass bottle, we want every one of those packages to be at least recycled material by 2030. And we know that goal, right, and creating demand by setting that goal is going to help drive more of those packages to be recycled so they come through the circular economy, because we've got to collect enough old packages, right, to be able to recycle and process them into new packaging.
So Jennifer, when you hear that, which is profoundly encouraging and a very demanding agenda for any major company to set, when you hear that, what would your and you can give this as free advice, you don't need to bill this one to Coca-Cola. What's your free advice to Coca-Cola to achieve that objective?
Well, it's a difficult objective, as you stated, but the circular economy is the important piece of that. And like Ben mentioned, it really has to be done with partnerships. It has to be done with all of us as manufacturers. It has to be done with our support from the government. It has to be done with the retailers, with the consumers. And it starts with us wanting to recycle what we do have in our homes, because it has to then get back through the circular economy to the manufacturers of the recycled material. So we at Hycone also just launched our Ring Recycle Me program, which is our initiative to have every ring carrier recycled and put back into a new ring carrier in the United States and Canada, so that we are going to continually have a stream of plastics that will be recycled and that we can put into PCR, which is the recycled plastic, so that over 50% of our product can continue to be recycled plastics, in order to help customers of ours like Coke meet their objectives of 50% of their materials to be recycled. It's important for all of us to understand that we have to leverage our partnerships around the circular economy, and that collaboration for this is really key. I think we all understand that no company or person is going to succeed alone, which is why we have all signed, or many of us, I should say, have signed the Ellen MacArthur Foundation New Plastics Economy that Ben mentioned. And for the students who are part of Enactus, I think asking for support from these companies who are supporting the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and making sure that we're already working on the circular economy with these companies, I think that's really important for them, and to make sure that we're leveraging these partnerships and that we can support this commitment to prevent the waste, no matter what the material is that our packaging is made of, and that we continue to advance the circular economy, because not one company is going to do it. We all have to do it together. We have to support each other so that we can begin to build this infrastructure necessary for the circular economy, and that we support each other's companies doing so moving forward.
So if you were to pick a really ideal, whatever the most ideal material would be that is non-environmentally threatening or minimum environmentally threatening, there must be something in your research labs that is lurking to come out. But what is lurking there that we really all need to use?
Well, for us, I mean, we spend quite a bit of our time and innovation for our sustainability. I don't believe we've really come out with one material so far, hence why we haven't launched a product yet. We really do focus on the science-based solutions for our future. We are really encouraged with what we have found. We are researching materials such as banana peels, seaweed, casein proteins, vega. So really quite a wide variety of non-plastics, non-traditional materials. And really those are there to replace our plastics, or not necessarily even replace, but really be another alternative to it. And I think really when we think about innovation having a greater impact on society, we also have to think about not just what the material is, but what is the manufacturing impact on the world. So thinking about what is the ability for this to be sourced? What is the ability for it to go into manufacturing? So how much energy does it take to manufacture? How much carbon is emitted when it's manufactured? How much water is used? Things of that nature. How many non-renewable resources are consumed to manufacture it? We want to make sure that everybody is looking at the big picture, not just, hey, let's get rid of plastics and let's replace it with seaweed because that's out there. There's more to think about when we think of replacing or having an alternative material to use for packaging.
So you I like the drop-in of seaweed. Would that suggest that that is, because I mean, that way, if we all ate the whole thing, we drank the Coke inside the seaweed, and then we ate that's very healthy.
Seaweed is healthy. You're right. It is edible. But if you used it for a packaging, I might not want to necessarily eat it. But yes, it is an edible material.
So Ben, as you're at Coca-Cola, as you are looking at these options, what is attractive to you as a better option to what you've got already?
Yeah. So first, I would just say, the materials piece of it is just one piece of it, right? Would we all love for there to be some holy grail type of material that just showed up or came about in nature or in a lab, such that a consumer could enjoy a product and poof, the package magically disappeared, right? And with no environmental impact, right? We would all love that, right? and that can be our innovation dream and long term, right? But the near term reality is different, right? And different packages, different materials, they do have an impact, right? And so it's all about, reducing that impact as much as you can, package by package, and then realizing that, okay, there are going to be some packages that have an impact that you're putting out there. How do you make sure they don't end up in the environment, right? And so I would just push on all of us to think, that rethinking plastic is different from eliminating plastic, and eliminating plastic is different from eliminating plastic waste in the environment, right? Which is what we all want to do. And so how do we keep as many, whatever packages we're using, how do we keep them out of the environment? That's priority one for us, but we do continue to work a lot on packaging materials. We do have a plant-based PET bottle that we've had in the market for 10 years. We launched about 10 years ago called Plant Bottle. It's a bio-based PET plastic that mimics virgin petroleum-based based PET, which makes it fully recyclable because we believe in the circular economy and driving it that way. We do think there will be more and more paper-based solutions, for different parts of the portfolio. But you also, you just have to ask yourself on a product by product basis, whether it's Coke or other, other of our peer companies, what is the product that you're creating? How do you get it to consumers? What's the best way for a consumer to enjoy and handle and consume that product, and then what do you do with it after that?
So let me just ask you, Ben, picking up on something Jennifer was making a very strong and necessary point about, which is that if we're going to go for really properly rethinking plastic, it's going to need everybody to head in a better direction together. And that's going to mean, I'm assuming, that your competitor companies, we don't need to name, PepsiCo, but I mean, we're going to assume that other companies are going to need to partner with you. And is that something you want to do for the greater good, or is that something you're forced to do because it's necessary?
Not just want to do, but are doing. And I would say, again, when we laid out our World Without Waste plan in late 2017 and early 2018, we put partnership as a key pillar, one of three key action pillars when we launched that program. And we said from the very beginning, we can't do this alone. We want to partner with others. It's not just your NGO partnerships and things like that, but also business partnerships and engaging with peers and competitors in a different way. I joke now that, I've been with Coca-Cola. I'm in my 25th year. I spent more time with Pepsi people in the last 2 years than I had before that, because we all agree on that. And we are engaged, as Jennifer said, all of us, many of us, in the Ellen MacArthur Foundation New Plastics Economy Global Commitment is another one for us. We were an inaugural investor along with PepsiCo, Nestle, Danone, and Dow in Circulate Capital over in Southeast Asia. That's another sort of industry, funded approach to reduce ocean plastic in Southeast Asia. We are part of the World Economic Forum Global Plastics Action Partnership, funded by a number of companies working with governments in creating national plastic action programs at the local level, and a lot of work through industry trade associations and other forums. So absolutely a huge collective action effort on this issue of plastics.
And Jennifer, would you say that this is something that business is doing irrespective of government, either federal or state? Is this just something that the business world wants to do because everybody knows it's now necessary and it's right, or are there incentives?
I believe that the business world is doing it because they know that it's right. I believe that we also understand that education is really an important role for us, going back to being part of the circular economy and knowing that it's going to be a big role. We do need the government to help us because education is going to play a role for us. So government, the manufacturers, like I mentioned before, retailers and consumers, all four of those to me are really important within making big changes to circular economy and to rethinking how we've been doing things in the past versus how we will do them moving forward. What Ben was saying about how many things have changed over the last several years is true. Maybe consumers aren't seeing all of that work today, but it takes a long time to get things from manufacturing into a consumer's hand. And it's not a magic. There's no magic potion. There's no magic fairy dust that we can sprinkle on our products to make it happen. But I think government is very important for us in all of the markets, at least that my company plays in, that they be a partner really with the manufacturers, that they understand that we're trying to do things to make the environment a better place for all of us, and to work with us and not be working necessarily just kind of on their own.
Now, in a couple of minutes' time, we're going to go over to a very short video from one of the Enactus projects in Canada. But we've got a question that's just come in from a Enactus student in Nigeria. And this is the question. It says, we are working on projects to place plastics for housing and for bricks. How can Hycone and Coca-Cola best support these Enactus projects? How can you amplify our stories and get others to join in? Ben, do you want to go first? What's your voice to Nigeria?
Sure. I think one way is through engaging with these local teams. We do, as a global business, we operate in over 200 countries. And so we have local Coca-Cola teams on the ground. So, it'd be interesting as we go through the list of the projects with our global team and think about, all right, how could our local teams potentially engage? When I look to that specific example, and the use of plastics into building materials, that is a great outlet for many plastics. Of course, with our bottles, because we can turn them into new bottles, we would always say we want them first, right? We want to be able to turn them into new bottles, but that's not always the case right away. And so, you may look to other uses for those bottles. But there are also other plastics that can't be as readily recycled into the same old thing again, right? Like a PET plastic bottle can. And so sometimes there are solutions like that are better for those plastics that you can't truly close the loop on.
I mean, maybe you could pop a note to your Nigerian to say, look, Enactus Nigeria have got this brilliant idea, and you need to connect with them.
Absolutely.
I'm just that
absolutely. No, that's exactly how we do it. Yeah.
Oh, good. Jessica, what would you say to our friend in Nigeria?
Yes, so we actually don't. We actually do sell in Nigeria. Ours is through our Spanish organization. But I would say, today we use LDPE number 4 plastic for our product, and it's oftentimes turned by companies like TerraCycle into things like flower pots and park benches and things like that. So the question I would have is, what could we do to turn it into building materials? Plastics are a lot more complicated than other materials because there are so many different polymers and monomers out there, and they have to be recycled differently and turned into and really kept into the same material that they were. So the question for me for the project is, what material do they have to have, and then kind of going from there from a technical standpoint, what materials are they looking from the circular economy to get for their marketplace, and then going from there really understanding where we could point them in the right direction, because our materials, our goods for Nigeria come from Spain, and Spain actually has a company that does recycle plastic. So maybe we could somehow work them into that process there.
Okay, that's two very healthy commitment answers, and I'm sure the connections will now be made behind us between Nigeria and Chicago and Atlanta, exactly the right way that it should be. Just as you were talking about that, Jennifer, it can get ever more complicated by the different materials, different types of. It's easy for us just to assume it's plastic, therefore it's all the same. And it's not. Is there a non-recyclable plastic?
So as far as I know, all plastics can be recycled through their chemical recycling, but through their own process, and then they come out as the same. But like my number 4 couldn't be recycled with the PET, for instance. They have to be separated. So that's one of the complications of plastics in the recycling world, and why there's not a broader recycling for plastics like there is for aluminum, for instance, for your Coca-Cola cans that tend to be much more simple to recycle. And that's, there's number 1 through number 8 or 9, I believe, for the different numbers on the materials that we buy in the stores. And then there's flexible and rigid. So the complications that come into play are much greater, and takes a lot more time to understand the recycling that needs to go into, whether it's chemical recycling or composting or just the recycling to turn it back into pellets to turn into new product, like we were mentioning about either coming into new PET bottles or new high cone carriers. So there's more complications, I think, than just the simplicity of maybe an aluminum can, and not that that's simple for recycling, but it's definitely more so for plastics.
And just to throw on to that, we sort of think about sometimes that there are two aspects to this recyclability question. There's the technical recyclability question of, can I recycle it somewhere in the world, right? But to the person sitting in Nigeria or anywhere else in the world, you want to know, can I recycle it in my place, right?
Yes.
And so do you always have that technology or that infrastructure, recycling infrastructure locally or in your community to be able to do something with it, right? And so sometimes those mixed plastics do end up just needing to be put into one solution for all other mixed plastics, because there isn't that very specific, recycling technology or process for that thing in that place.
So let's take a look now. We've got a 77-second video of an actors project in Canada, and this is where students are rethinking and reimagining plastics. Let's take a look.
Every year, 8 million metric tons of plastic ends up in the ocean. That's equivalent to 5 grocery bags worth of plastic trash for every foot of coastline around the globe. It is estimated that by 2050, there'll be more plastic in the oceans than fish. The ocean is the Earth's lifeline, and if damaged beyond repair, clean water will become only a dream for our entire planet.
So we created Poly, an innovative social enterprise that manufactures small-scale recycling systems to simultaneously address plastic waste and water pollution. Using our shredder and molder machines, plastic is broken down into small pieces, then melted and shaped into new product using interchangeable molds. Our Poly machines are capable of producing anything from flower pots to furniture, all out of 100% recycled plastic. Each Poly system is operated by a local entrepreneur or organization who can earn revenue through selling the products, as well as through plastic collection and pickup services, making plastic not only a raw material, but also a source of revenue.
Using one shredder and molder, each Poly system can divert over 300,000 water bottles worth of plastic annually. That's enough to stretch to the top of Mount Everest over 7 times.
In the next year, we plan to bring Poly to 9 communities across Canada and beyond, creating 18 jobs and diverting over 75,000 pounds of plastic waste from our oceans.
So I noticed, looking at Ben and Jennifer, looking at your faces, you were really pleased with what you were seeing there from Canada. Is there something you've picked up from that you could absorb into your business? Ben?
So to me, I would just that kind of thinking and energy and engagement is exactly what we need to see all over the world, right? And and obviously, right, we need to be able to recycle more plastic into more things, right? One small point I would make as it relates to just that 1 through 9, sort of plastics designation that Jennifer was talking about is, some plastics are higher value than others in this varies market by market. And so sometimes you want, sometimes you want to use those higher value plastics in higher value end products, i.e., turning them into the thing they were before, right? Versus mixing them all together and turning them into something else. And so that's the only thing I would do on that example is want to get involved and say, okay, what are the types of plastics that are ideal for what you're trying to make? And can you focus on, those mixed plastics or those lower value plastics that may not have, that higher value purpose? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm going to, sorry, Jennifer?
No, I completely agree with what he said. And my only addition is that it's really exciting, for us to see the energy that's going on in a lot of these projects when I went out and did research on the projects as we were engaging with Enactus, because that's what we are going to need as we go forward, is the passion and energy that we're seeing with these projects that are happening.
So here's one of the questions. It's a bit of a technical one, so I'm just going to read it for what it is. So get ready, concentrate. I'm a biomedical researcher. As I understand, we use about 5.5 tons of single-use plastics for scientific research every year globally. I absolutely hate myself looking at the amount of plastics I throw in the bin every day, from pipettes, tips to tubes. But modern science may not be able to exist without the use of plastics. What would be the innovation in the future to reduce this load?
Yeah,
Jennifer?
So I would say, I think it's important also to remember that plastics were developed for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that they are hygienic. And my assumption here is that's one of the reasons that I don't remember his pounds that he just said that they go through.
5.5 tons.
5.5 tons. Okay, so quite a bit. Is they are very hygienic. Chances are very little right now that will change, especially with what we've seen going on with COVID around the world. And, as we start to rethink how we use plastics and how we move forward, that might not be the number one target for changing plastics in the society. Knowing what's been happening, it might be other markets. And one of my scientists has said to me, there's been 60 years of research in plastics, and we need to always keep that in mind, because as we go to seaweed, as we talked about earlier, Lord Hastings, there's not been 60 years of research around replacing plastics with seaweed, for instance. So as we go forward with alternatives and thinking about what to do, we just need to keep that in mind, that we want to keep the big picture in mind. And that's why the circular economy, I believe, is really important when it comes to plastics, because there are purposes for it that exist today until we can really work on the alternative materials and get them to the same purposes with the hygienicness of it, that lightweight, that is probably the reasons that it's used in the biomedical industry.
So Ben, here's a specific one for you, for Coca-Cola. Some Coca-Cola markets are now using returnable PETs, notably Brazil, as opposed to single-use. What infrastructure would need to be developed across the USA and Canada or other markets to implement a returnable circular economy of PET?
So we are seeing a lot of activity on this all around the world. And in particular, you highlight Brazil. Our business there has an aim to have 50% of their consumer packaging and refillables. And so, that's huge, right? And as I said, many markets already have that, or high percentages of refillables. Our business all across Latin America is looking at how can they dramatically increase their refillables. And it's both refillable glass and refillable PET. What does that take from the standpoint of infrastructure as the basic question? So if you traditionally, what it has meant is, packaging goes out into the marketplace, goes to customers and consumers who bring the packaging back, usually through a retail location, and then we somehow get it either just directly back on the Coca-Cola bottling trucks or through some other type of collection or recycling infrastructure, and it comes back in to the Coca-Cola bottling plant, where that package needs to be washed out and to become as good as new, right? So that it can be filled again. And so there's an infrastructure required at the manufacturing facility to do all of that cleaning and washing, let alone just the reverse logistics of getting it back from the marketplace. Now, what we're seeing a lot of energy around over the last few years is the development or increased number of third-party services out there that will do that collection and washing for companies, so that the bottles just show up, right? Back at the bottling plant and into the bottler, they're just buying a new bottle, right? It just happens that somebody else washed it out for them. And so we're piloting those approaches, as well as the more traditional, doing more with the more traditional approach of having that infrastructure ourselves. But I mean, if you think about it, so, we've all seen beverage packaging, in the environment, right? Or where it shouldn't be. I mean, you can imagine what happens to a bottle. It's not always the case that a consumer just drinks the bottle and it goes right back to the bottling plant, right? Sometimes things get in that bottle that shouldn't, and so there's a fair bit of cleaning and sanitation that has to happen somewhere, right? For that bottle to be refilled again.
And I'm assuming you've done the metrics on the amount of water it takes and the energy it takes, and as you both think about those issues, balancing it all out, it's the circular economy is not just the right thing, is it economically the better thing?
So we do believe, all right, okay, if you're collecting more packaging through recycling programs in a cost-effective way, and that material that's creating a source of material for us to turn that old packaging into new packaging. We do believe that ultimately there's a economic value to that, right? And there is economic loss when you see packages going to the environment, right? Because there is economic value in that packaging, but how exactly do those numbers add up, on a place, but it is a place by place, country by sometimes community by community type of thing to get those numbers to truly add up. But we absolutely believe there is that business and economic value, whether it's, the packaging that's used once and then recycled, or the packaging that is brought back to us and we refill it again.
So we've just got a few seconds left. I'm going to ask you, Jennifer, in your response to that, is the argument you make as a company, but you make it in your own private mind, that this is a better deal for the world than just to throw it away?
I believe it is. I believe that the circular economy, and for us to recycle and reuse as much plastic as we can, or really any material, not just plastic, by the way, is better for the world, better for the environment. And like Ben, I also have a child, and I'd like to teach her to do this and to rethink what she does and having her impact on the environment as well. So I think it's a bigger picture than just the financial footprint as well. I think it's what we need to do as a society.
Well, thank you both. Thank you to all of you who've listened into and watched us. Thank you for the questions that have come from around the world. It's been an opportunity for us to highlight very, very clearly that there is a better way to do things. We can create a more sustainable world, and we must. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the World Cup.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Every year, 8 million metric tons of plastic ends up in the ocean. That's equivalent to 5 grocery bags worth of plastic trash for every foot of coastline around the globe. It is estimated that by 2050, there'll be more plastic in the oceans than fish. The ocean is the Earth's lifeline, and if damaged beyond repair, clean water will become only a dream for our entire planet.
So we created Poly, an innovative social enterprise that manufactures small-scale recycling systems to simultaneously address plastic waste and water pollution. Using our shredder and molder machines, plastic is broken down into small pieces, then melted and shaped into new product using interchangeable molds. Our Poly machines are capable of producing anything from flower pots to furniture, all out of 100% recycled plastic. Each Poly system is operated by a local entrepreneur or organization who can earn revenue through selling the products, as well as through plastic collection and pickup services, making plastic not only a raw material, but also a source of revenue.
Using one shredder and molder, each Poly system can divert over 300,000 water bottles worth of plastic annually. That's enough to stretch to the top of Mount Everest over 7 times.
In the next year, we plan to bring Poly to 9 communities across Canada and beyond, creating 18 jobs and diverting over 75,000 pounds of plastic waste from our oceans.